What are we talking about, Marissa?
We're talking about the most essential part of events, which is speakers.
I'm John Harris. This is my amazing co-host, Marissa Kelly, and this is the Resilient Events podcast.
Yes.
Nothing worse for a speaker event than a boring speaker, right?
Oh, I know you've been at events where you're like, oh man, this is rough.
And what it makes me think of is like those old cartoons where a hook would come in from on the side of the screen and just like pull people right off. Like, where are those hooks these
Yeah.
days?
Yeah. I mean, I don't mean to be hypercritical, but when you're sitting behind the scenes and putting together events and you have a speaker on stage and they're not reading the room, like, or they're just kind of just there. It's pretty sad, and I think that there's a lot of reasons why that happens. So we're gonna get into some reasons why that cannot happen, or how you can make it not happen. So
Right, kind of how to get
yeah.
around that. So yeah, first kind of segment for this was like pre-show, like
Hmm.
before you plan the event, before you book the speaker, way back in the early days. It's like that's where it all starts, right?
Yes, the early days. You mean like a week before when people are booking
No,
speakers?
probably not. When you plan the event and then you hopefully you plan your event before you pick your speakers.
Yeah, I think there's two different formats that people really, and we'll get into like how they fit in, but like a lot of people want speakers to apply and like say what they're going to say, and they're the most confident in that. And then some event planners want to guide the content and then put speakers in that, and that doesn't always work because they're not the most confident in that. So you really have to decide how you're going to do that early on, because it does guide everything else after the fact. And sometimes people don't know what they're doing.
Right.
So we're
Got it.
here.
So have you had clients where they like the speaker was picked way before the event started? I guess that would happen if like say it was a corporate event and like the CEO has to speak. Right.
Yeah. Hmm. And usually the CEO or like someone on the host committee will know what to speak because they're involved in the original discussions about the tone and the voice of the event and what the goals are. Um, a lot of times speakers come in and they don't know that and they're not prepped that. They're just saying, "Hey, apply." And like there's no really direction on what type of content they would be saying, and maybe they don't need to apply based on
Right.
that content or that purpose. So but yeah, it can be all the things, but my intention is always, like we've said on previous episodes, is what's the purpose of the event, what's your end goal, and then we work from there and hopefully
Right.
keep all of that in line when we're placing things.
Fair.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then like kind of as you get into it, I think like format fit is one of the big kind of topics to cover. Like
Hmm.
just making sure for the people that you have, it just fits it fits that format. Like so for example, if you're gonna have somebody that's just not the most exciting person in the world, then having them speak for longer than 30 minutes is a terrible idea. So I
Yes.
think generally a good rule of thumb is if their name doesn't start with O. So if it's not Oprah and it's not Obama, they're not allowed to speak for more than 30 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're planning an event, you default to like hours just because that's how you plan your calendar. But like, it doesn't have to be that, what, or workshops, even workshops, sometimes 90 minutes is too long for someone to hold attention and like really have engagement. So, if it's 30 minutes, you're really golden in that, because if you can build in buffers if they do go over to like 35 maybe, but you cannot fill space with a really boring speaker longer than, oh, your session's an hour. Oh my gosh, I have to talk for an hour. Like, that's a lot.
Right. And then, so yeah, just like in your general knowledge about that speaker, the more boring they are, there should be like some kind of scale where the more boring they generally are, the more kind of things you're going to need to throw at it. It can't just be straight them talking. Going to need to
Hmm.
throw in some like audience interactivity or like just kind of change up the format. Right. So,
Yeah.
um, audience interactivity could be like Q&A, so just going back and forth with the audience,
Hmm.
polling, etc. can be fun sometimes. What about for other like kind of changing up the onstage format? What do you see when
Yeah, some things that I really like if you're not familiar with their speaker format, their engagement, their vibrancy, stuff like that, is test them out on a panel, or like have someone that you know can come on and do an interview, or a debate even about a specific topic, like getting that comfort level. And just like a podcast series like this, it is more comfortable. We're talking back and forth. We're kind of bouncing ideas off each other, still providing value at all points of the conversation. But there's, I think, a little less pressure. And I mean, you can get a lot of good nuggets from that, unless they're a keynote speaker that can really engage someone for a long period of time and have all of that presence. I think people just think, oh, if they're a professional, they can speak to a group. And I'm like, yeah, not always. Not
Yeah.
always.
What's
So,
the definition of professional, right?
yeah.
Because you paid the money doesn't mean that much.
Right.
Um, Other things, so that's like making sure like the plan kind of fits the speaker and the event.
Mhm.
Next kind of major topic is like with speakers, just like I've seen this many times before when the speaker has no idea what the details are and they don't know what the
Mhm.
commitment are. They just think that they're going to be on stage, they're going to be running the show almost.
Mhm. Right. I think, and that goes back to like your speaker application, maybe giving some overview of the desired goals of the event or the audience that you expect to be there, and even some proposed topics that you already have in your mind. Most event planners that are doing it for a while, they're ingrained in the organization, so they know what they want for the content. There's content managers in event management companies, there's content people just in the marketing side. So if you're involving them in the speaker selection process, I think it does make for better applications. And this is all pre-show, right? You're kind of setting the stage for what the goals of the event are from the beginning, and getting people that are experts in their topic, or they've already talked about this topic, or you've seen them speak elsewhere, so you kind of know what you're getting with your speaker applications or your speaker selection.
Right. Um, and then I think this one thing too is like what was it? Is it Bill Gates that said this? Like the only thing he needs to know to speak to his audience is like what's their level of expertise and how long do I have?
Mhm,
But knowing
mhm.
like level of if you can give the speaker typically level of expertise in their topic, then they can kind of adjust that as well. So they're not over explaining and also at the same time not under explaining, right?
Yeah, and sometimes you don't know that, so you have to prep. You kinda have to do your due diligence with the speakers and say, "You don't know, we don't know what their knowledge level is, so can you do a general, from the most basic to the really intense, or this is a really basic thing, and that has to be explained in the agenda or the program that you have, because maybe it won't be useful for someone to go to that if it's really big." I've been
Right.
to so many basic ones. I'm just like, why am I here? And then it's weird to walk out, right? You can't
Yeah.
do that in the middle. I
Yeah.
mean, you can, but no.
Yeah, and so as an event organizer, well, we'll talk about that during in show, but people won't walk out, but they'll tune out, right? And you can notice
Yeah.
that.
Mhm, mhm.
We're all way too polite for that.
One of the things I like this next one that for the pre-show is like the deliverables. And I think a lot of people think about this after the fact. Like, what are they going to have to submit? Submit slides? Is there a shared folder they're going to upload? Are they going to submit their headshot, their bio? And that can get tedious for a speaker, but it does show their level of commitment. Like, are they going to show up because they've given you all this stuff in the beginning?
Yeah,
They're prepared,
yeah,
versus like, hey, I just want to be a speaker, but you're not really
yeah.
providing anything.
And if someone's being a little bit behind on the details, then you probably like if you're planning this a ways out in advance, and if people are getting late with all those like deliverables, like probably a red flag, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it does, I mean, there's many of apps that allow you to collect all of that when you're getting your speakers. Obviously, if there's some high level speakers, you don't necessarily ask them to fill out an application because you want them to feel like a VIP. But and the event planners and all the staff know, hey, like we're gonna need all this stuff before we start getting speakers or organizing speakers. So let's make sure we put that in the form or the email, like this is what we need, and then you can weed out people, like you said in the
Yeah.
beginning. They didn't really pay attention to
Yeah.
this.
And then one like super important thing for just live events that are recorded or anything, any events with a high technical level, like online, hybrid, essential, etc. Tech
Mhm.
check dates. Do they show up to the tech check? Are they ready? Do they say they don't need to go to the tech check? I'm sure
Yeah.
you've dealt with this one before.
Yeah, tech checks are interesting because I've really kind of trained a lot of my clients like this is necessary. Whether people show up to it or not, that's another story. But presenting that it's that level of importance for the client or for the outcome of the event host, I think it also prepares speakers like, okay, like this is a legit event. We are doing a tech check. Even if they can't show up, maybe they can schedule something else, but there's something already there for them to know that, like, hey, they can have all their questions answered. Um, but we've had plenty that don't show up, and it's frustrating
Yeah.
because they're
And
just
it
not
just,
ready.
yeah, they're
So,
not ready, and just adds to the expense. Like if you booked a time in your calendar to tech check somebody and they don't show up, then you have to spend time rebooking and then buying a new time, and event planners costs go up, right?
yeah, yeah.
That yeah, what else for pre-show? Um
Mm, okay, this is controversial, and I don't
okay,
know if you've ever seen this. If you're not showing up to tech checks, do you cancel them?
I would.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a hard one because I think it does depend on the relationship you have with the speaker, what kind of communication have they been provided. Sometimes the communication is not in the hands of the event producer like myself, or it's in charge of someone at a different level and they're just not as communicative as maybe someone like me would be regarding tech checks. Um, and then you have to make that call. Like, do they treat your event as something that's important to you or to them?
Yeah.
Because they're showing up and representing your brand at the end of the day. I've never had to do this. We always have to have a workaround, but it again, adds to the cost or stress level of everyone involved because we have to kind of hope that they show up on time or they submitted their slides and last minute, and you're kind of scrambling, especially in virtual. It's a little bit harder because you kind of have to wait, hurry up and wait in
Yeah.
that sense. um I've never had to do it, but a backup is also an option.
An understudy.
Yeah.
Everybody should have an understudy, right?
Yeah, I mean, does that get into like, kind of like if you're invited to the wedding and then like you get like an invite like a week before, you're like,
A
"Hey,
last
look."
minute invite. Yeah.
It's like,
Please come. We don't want empty seats.
would you come? Like, I don't know. Like, I guess it just depends on, where you're at with with the speaker, the relationship, if that person really wanted to be there, if you have to pay for travel costs, like all these things, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But I think backups could be internal speakers. It
Yeah.
could be, make sure enough people that could speak on a specific topic. And, I've seen agendas change on the day of, a minute before, 10 minutes before. Most attendees know that. So I also
Yeah.
wouldn't worry about, oh my God, we just printed the programs with this speaker.
Yeah.
It happens. People don't show up.
And
So,
that's why you don't print programs. You use
yes.
technology.
Oh my God, people still print programs. And I'm just like, okay, carbon footprint though, like this doesn't work. I
No, it's just you can't
promise.
change it too. But
Yeah.
yeah, finally, I think one good thing for pre-show is just prepping the audience for the speaker. I know basically every planner does this. They like obviously are sending out details. People know who the speakers are. Maybe they get like social links, their bio.
Mhm.
But I'd recommend like taking it like a little bit further, just so audience members aren't, that they're not like coming in dry and like not knowing who that person is.
Mhm.
And it's like they know what to expect. So like just one great thing to be able to do is submit, if you're going to be doing Q&A, can you submit questions in advance?
Yeah.
Right. That gives you a nice little lower kind of like security risk. You have more control over the content because you get to choose instead of randomly taking questions. You can kind of guide the content.
Mhm.
And then if you can let people know that their questions are going to be answered on stage,
Yeah.
that's just a way more exciting, more interesting, making that person want to show up.
Yeah, I think this is a really good tactic to get more people to show up, but also really kind of determine if that track or that session is going to be well attended. And this
Yeah,
all, if it's a new event, that's different. If it's something repeated that's happened throughout the years, it's really hard to gauge like how a new session would work. But you also need to make sure that the speaker understands that this is potentially part of their role as a speaker, where they're going to have to be asked to like post on social, like, hey, I'm going to be at this event. Like, do you have questions? Because I mean, I love that. Like, I'm like, cool, I'm going to be at this event. Like, I want to engage. But a lot of people will not build that into the speaker engagement or the speaker agreement or expectation. And
yeah,
then, like, no one shows up to their session, and you're like, okay, like is whose responsibility is it for me to like to for people to come to my session? Is it the event organizer or is it me or is it a
yeah,
combination of both? I mean, those are all things to
yeah.
talk about.
And yeah, as an audience member, that's one of my number one reasons for going to events is being able to like get in touch with like higher level speakers. It's like it's
Mhm.
so much fun, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, moving to the next phase. So talking about like in show. So you've prepped, you got these backup plans. We could talk like, and so what do you do in show? We could talk a little bit more about like what backup plans you can have.
Mhm.
Um, for every speaker these days, whether it's in person or remote, generally you could have a pre-recorded session
Yes.
of them just in case something happens, they can't show up for some reason, right?
Mhm. I think this also goes to if you're having an in-person event, having an engaged room host. So that's someone who can go up on stage, interview the speaker, talk to the audience, and they have like that energy. There maybe I know one of the big conferences that I've been to, the room hosts generally graduate into being speakers. Like you are not a speaker until you're a room host
Oh,
because
interesting.
we can see that you're engaging, you have like people enthusiastic about joining the session, and
Yeah,
you know how to like run the room with someone who you potentially don't know, right? Like
yeah,
you're introducing a speaker. So you've done your prep, you can speak in front of a group. And this is all like, these are roles that a lot of people, even in the virtual world, you can have. You can have a virtual room host, whether it's, someone internally through corporate or like someone who knows them, who can introduce them. And they have to have the gift of gab because what if your speaker doesn't show up?
yeah. Got
You
to
know,
be
how
there, right?
and I think people are okay with, like, sessions being canceled, but they don't wanna just wait there in a room, like, what's going on? Like, no one's showing up, no one's coming up on stage, like, that's weird and awkward, and that can be happening in the virtual world too, so think about how you can engage those people. Room host, I would
Yeah,
say, virtual room host.
interesting. Yeah, that sounds like a really good way to help just speakers be engaging no matter what, right?
Mhm,
Um, and like so, in online, a room host could like if like what we're doing now, if you were interviewing me, just like being if you're both side by side on camera, one of the hardest things about presenting online is if you can't see anyone.
mhm,
So just like having somebody being like that one person audience so that the person can see you, just like nodding, responding like
mhm,
a little bit, like don't have to clap, you know. um,
yeah.
perfect. That can just kind of help things flow, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and then
and,
also, go ahead. Sorry.
I think, what did you say? Like, I think, this does help, comfort level. You can read energy off the screen, like, if and it doesn't even need to be like me and you, right? Like, if I'm jumping in, it could be like your host, your MC, right? Like, they have the gift of gab. They know what's going on in the whole event. They can come on and talk with whoever and talk about the content. When it comes down to it, I think just be real. Hey, we didn't have this person show up. Let's just talk about this topic or let's move on and make a shorter event. These are all things that if you don't practice them or talk about what is going to happen, then it can really blow up in your face.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts if there was like a really boring speaker or something went wrong and like you say you're attending an event. If
Mm-hmm.
they just continue the event to be the right time that it was supposed to be, like the right number of hours, or if they just cut the event a little bit shorter, would you rather get out of there faster or have the full length? What's your take?
I think it depends on how you've promoted sessions. Like if it's like multiple tracks and like if I'm going to one session and like that's not happening, but the next session doesn't happen for another 40 minutes or
Yeah.
so, you can't really put like you can't make that person start earlier because like, oh, I'm supposed
Oh,
to go
totally. Yeah.
here after the other one. So I think definitely would love a shorter event. So
Yeah.
that's all good for me. But I think even just talking about some topic related to it or having, other people ask questions in the comments, you can definitely fill up some time if you have properly prepared staff
Yeah.
to talk about that topic.
Right.
Um,
But yeah, as an audience member, generally, if something went wrong and I was faced with like low value content versus just time off to talk to other people there, I'd probably rather just have that like impromptu networking session.
yeah.
Right.
Oh my god, the
And
worst is like, I'll wait for questions. I'm just like, "What? Why are you like no one's writing questions. Like no one's just." And then it's like the awkward silence in the room, like no one's going to write a question cuz they're going to be that one person that's writing a question.
Yeah.
Like you said, if you're having a speaker promote it ahead of time or the event host, make sure you have some built-in questions that you can ask, and even if you know the answer already, it doesn't matter. Have questions,
Yeah.
I think it definitely helps to be prepared for that.
And then I think a few minutes ago we mentioned like how you can tell if like you said you're not going to get up and leave the room. But
Mhm.
these ways that you can tell if people are like mentally leaving the room, right?
Yeah.
So it's like obviously chatter. Chatter is like the worst. That's like the highest level. Um, I guess is maybe in sometimes people would walk out. Maybe walk out is like red alert, right?
Yeah,
But orange alert is like people chattering. Just people just not looking at
like
the
this.
stage. People
Yeah.
looking at their phones,
Oh
etc.
my
And so,
god.
like a good room host has got to be, or host has got to be just kind of watching that, reading that, and just being just ready to kill the speaker to save the room,
Yeah,
right?
right,
Like
exactly.
it's the event is more important than that speaker's ego or your awkwardness, right? So you got to
Yes.
like just get that long hook,
Let's
pull that person off stage.
let's put the curtain. Just like slowly put the
Yeah.
curtain. It's like, bye. You're done. Oh man. Yeah. I don't know if it can be practiced, if it's like a gift of, room hosts or whatever, or like someone who's really intently reading the audience, but like I don't care if like my session ends early.
Yeah.
Personally, it's an ego
Yeah.
thing. If you need to go to the whole thing, and I'm not gonna get sad if it ends early.
Yeah.
I'd rather not be awkwardly standing
Yeah.
up there waiting for someone to ask a question. So
And so some tactics for that could be like just to be not awkward, like, okay, well, let's shift into Q&A now. Just like kind of walk on stage and let's shift into like, oh, no questions. Okay, see you later.
yeah.
Or you could ask some questions of your own. I think
Would it
that
be weird if like you said, okay, like I know this person's not here, but they sent me a message fib on LinkedIn, a fib saying, "Hey, they sent me a LinkedIn message. They were going to ask me, they were going to be at this session, but they're not here." Like, would you feel weird if you were in that session and someone brought in a question from LinkedIn, even though it was a lie?
what I feel, sorry, say that
If
again.
you're an attendee,
Yeah.
right, and you're
Yeah.
watching the speaker and like their session's ending early, like you're not really engaged,
Yeah.
but they tell a fib saying they're prepared, right? They like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I got this question on LinkedIn." Would you feel weird if that was a lie? Like if they were just prepping with like a built-in question that wasn't really asked.
How would I know it was a lie as an
You
attendee, though?
wouldn't. You
Yeah.
wouldn't. I'm
So I
saying,
wouldn't feel weird.
yeah. But I think it's like I think people don't think about that. They're like, "Oh, well, I'm speaking to this room, like I'm gonna wait for their questions. But I'm like,
Right. No, I think that's a great idea.
some
Yeah.
people don't.
Prep your own list of questions.
Some people do not want to have the
Why are you so
first.
good looking, John? Well,
Some people don't want to be the first person to raise their hand. Like
right.
there's
Yeah.
something
No, that's a good
like,
tactic. I like that.
ooh, I don't want to be the first one, or like I don't want to ask a stupid question that everyone always says. Forgive me if this is a stupid question. I'm like, what? There's no stupid question. So yeah, I think
Interesting. No, that's a
you
good
can
one.
tell the speaker to have something
Yeah.
prepped, and I don't think it's, I guess I'm giving away my speaker secrets, but
That's what the
whatever.
show is all about, isn't it?
Yeah. Make sure you quote me, and yeah. Okay. Anyways. Are we moving into the post show, like how to prep
Yeah,
your
I
speakers?
think that's everything I can think of for like in show.
Hmm.
So post show, uh, number one thing, like we just said earlier, like why I go to events to see speakers is to be able to potentially connect with those speakers.
Right.
And so if you can guide people in like how that's going to happen, maybe it's just like they're going to be in a certain room for networking afterwards or
Hmm.
whatever. It just makes it that much more exciting to be able to just to know where to go and have that conversation.
Yeah, and I think this is also something, if you're a speaker, asking event hosts like, where can I talk with them after? Like, what is the plan? Show up as a prepped speaker so that you can be asked back, because it shows that you care about the event, not just, hey, I'm the event host, this is what's happening. Like, here, I'm going to info dump everything. Like, how can you be an equal partner in this speaker host relationship? Is there going to be a speaker event? Is there a table I can speak at? Or, is there a sponsor that you might think that I can partner with, where I can be at that sponsor table, which I think also is a benefit for sponsors, which is another thing. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Send the audience all the answers to the questions. So you'd have to have a note taker.
Yeah, like I think one thing, so what I was thinking about when I wrote this note was kind of like if people are able to, if you get too many questions sent in, which happens with good speakers,
Yes.
like they get to offer like they have to answer like 10% of questions.
Right.
Sometimes the speaker will have time off stage to answer those questions for people. And
Hmm.
then so if you can if you're using software, then you can kind of send all of those questions and responses to the rest of the people in the audience, so that like just if one, it's nice if you're one in 150 people and your question gets answered and that comes
Yeah.
to you, that's nice, but way better for the rest of the 149 people if that goes to everyone, right?
Right. Right. Yes. Software. I like that. Use
Software.
software.
The note taker. Humans with pencils. What?
You never know.
Or it could
Yeah.
be a recording of that session if there
Yeah.
was a human with a
True.
pencil too, right?
Yeah. That's a good way to post event, post show. Um, Let the audience know where to follow them on social media. So this could also be, something built into your speaker requirements, but also given to your room host or given to the event host, and make sure that that's dropped multiple times in the
Right.
conversation if it's a virtual event.
Yeah, and then making that combined with like those if you have that recording, if you have that those questions answered, etc., then it makes it more than just like, a Facebook link that's so 2008, right?
What's Facebook? I
I
don't know.
don't even know. It's where my
Oh.
grandma hangs out.
Where all the events happen still,
Yeah.
sadly. People
Yeah.
put everything on there. I'm like, nope, nope. All right, cool. So, how can you be a good speaker? Do you want to be a speaker now, John?
I think
Like,
that I do. I think that I actually want to be a room host with a hook. That's what I
yeah,
want to be, because I think with my
s-
bartending experience, I'm going to have a really good read of the room. I think I know
yeah,
when somebody sucks. And
yeah.
I've never been a bouncer though, and I don't think I'm big enough to be a good bouncer. So I'll need some security staff with me.
Yes. I think also as a room host, you have to build rapport with the speaker so that you guys can have a good, like, okay, like, come save me here, right? Like, if that's the vibe, like, come on and like, let's do a Q&A, or let's bounce each ideas off of each other. I think you can really find your way as a room room host, or like I don't know.
So I know
Filler.
there's a lot of like databases out there and a lot of programs for like speakers and helping them be pro speakers. Is there a pro room hosts thing that I can
I don't
join
think
that
so.
people
I
can
don't think
retire me to
people
be a room host?
No, people just think it's like a role, right? Like they don't think about it as being someone like it's just a staff person, right? Like I think the one conference that had room host that, it was a social media conference. Well, duh, it's social media, like everything's content, right? But I've been to conferences, they don't have them. And I'm like, why not? Just have someone introduce.
Yeah,
That's cool. And like I don't necessarily want to talk about a topic for 30 minutes. But I would love
yeah,
to introduce someone and build that rapport and like, be that intro person, right?
yeah.
So,
Speaker's apprentice.
yes. No database, but it's coming, 2025.
Okay, awesome. Can't wait.
Cool. All right. So, if you're a speaker, hopefully you got some good notes from this. If you're an event host and you're trying to get speakers, hopefully you got some good notes from this. Where can we find all the information on Resilient Events podcast, John?
At the website,
Yes. And the
RizPod dot
website
RizPod dot
live.
live. There we go. Easy. Show notes, blogs,
All the
coming
things.
soon. Assets.
Cool. RizPod.live. We'll talk to you soon.
Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.